question of assessment to risk, if there's a cheat code to it, we've made mention to it about how the most and the only investment that Kenyans seem to like and will do over and over again is the government bonds. It hasn't got further enough that we know we are going to pay for that 17% still as taxes, but it's still the most safe thing for us to do. And we had a good cheat code on this assessment risk. If I could just go through, and I want to get questions as well, from the audience. But is there a way to have sort of look at a company and say, my assessment to risk in these 2-3 things, these are the most important things to look at in Kenya today, and that should give you sort of enough confidence that we are trying to talk about, so that we get into this place where we're not just saving, but there's actual investments going through.
For the ones who don't know what an actuary does, we are like accountants plus statisticians and people who look forward into the future. So the role of an actuary is actually to design financial products, and risk is actually at the heart of it all, right? Now, the problem we have in our markets is that we think government is risk-free, but the definition of risk-free should be the asset with the lowest return, right? So then you have your risk-free rate, no risk, and then you add now the risks, whether it's equities, whether it's private, whatever it is, whether it's property, whatever it is. But in Kenya, risk-free rate is the highest rate. So then the question is, are these other entities giving you negative return? So what I would recommend, and I'm happy some of the key players are here, is let's step back. Let's ask ourselves, for example, and I want to go back to these pension funds. This 1.7 trillion shillings we're talking about is with only 1 million adults right now, right? So 1 million adults in Kenya have pension schemes, are in part of a pension, and that 1 million adults, on average, have about 1.7 million shillings in their account, right, on average. So 1.7 million shillings per person on average. Some have more, some have less. 1 million of them, you have 1.7 trillion. How fast is that growing? It's growing by 140 billion to 200 every year. So we'll get another trillion coming in over the next 7 years. So if this trillion comes in, every year, people come like to myself and do an investment policy statement. So I send about 50 of those every year. But at a micro level, everybody's saying, I want return. I want return. So everybody wants return, nobody wants to take risk. Nobody wants to take risk. So everybody wants to hear 15% of their pension, 10% of their pension. Now the problem is that you might open the private equities, you might open the rates, you might open the CISs guys are coming up with, but what will happen to him as a fund manager? He'll get fired if he doesn't give you that return, right? So our market, what it needs is infrastructure that can support those people, okay? And I gave the example earlier to the team we were talking about earlier. Let's say a young lady is a dentist. She's just studying dentistry and she's now qualifying. And maybe to do those tables, to set up a facility, maybe costs 15 million shillings, right? Do you know that person goes to their parents for a loan and say, Dad, Mom, go take a loan to set up this dentist office? And then all of us, we are standing in the line with our 5K and telling them we want to go to the dentist and pay our 5K. We're not linking that we can actually finance that 15 million facility. Now, these billions I've just talked about, 5 billion, 10 billion can really help that person, but they are now risky. They are risky from that perspective. So you have to create infrastructure that makes it more transparent, makes it, people want to enter and exit quickly, you need to remove their credit risks. So you have to create a wrapper around these SMEs to be able to enable them to be funded. Otherwise, they'll all go to Equity Bank and get the loan. Thank you.
Yeah, but the question is, whose job is it to create this infrastructure? Before I go to Esther, whose job is it to create this infrastructure for SMEs so that this money can essentially then flow quickly?
Actually, that is the question. Who should? Safaricom should, I guess. Esther, that's work for you. Equity Bank can do it. Anybody can do it. And I think whoever does the peer-to-peer investing in the country, where this excess money is financing. Remember, if only 1 million Kenyans out of the 25 million adults can raise 1.7 trillion, then the other 24 million who are just somewhere, if they can fundraise, even if it's 100 billion in the system, that can finance other SMEs and that can spur growth. Right now, the structure we have is cash comes in, bonds. What is bonds? A promise on paper, then taxes. So we are actually having a vicious cycle coming up and we're not realizing it. Thank you.
We're taxing ourselves more.